and welcome to the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf, joined by Riley Fessler. How are you, Riley?
Gosh golly, I'm just swell today. How are you, David?
Gosh golly. You know why? Because it's Friday, and he hates doing this shit. And
Your words, not mine.
No, it's not true. He loves it every day being here with all of you. And you know who else loves it? Minna Stein. How are you doing, Minna?
I'm great because we all know that news stops on Friday and we get the weekend off.
Yeah, it just stops. Actually, usually these guys, they always do like some story dump late on the day on Friday. Like if they don't want it to get coverage, they'll do it late on the day on Friday because then they think people won't pay any attention. There's a rumor that there are a bunch of people going to get fired, senior jobs at the Pentagon. If it happens, it could well happen later today on Friday. And if it does, we'll be there with all the breaking news on Monday. Who's kicking this off?
Me. The Treasury Department and the White House have agreed to restrict DOGE from accessing sensitive taxpayer data at the IRS following concerns from congressional Democrats, unions, and advocacy groups over potential privacy violations. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent defended DOGE's efforts to improve efficiency and combat fraud, dismissing critics as resistant to change. However, DOGE's access to Treasury's payment system, which handles over $5 trillion annually, has sparked legal challenges with federal judges blocking access for most DOGE employees and political appointees. Amid ongoing legal battles, Treasury announced personnel changes to its DOGE team, including replacing a member who resigned over controversial social media posts. I wonder if it was big balls.
I don't know if it was big balls. I do know that, they're all over the place and they're not doing well in the polls. There have been some recent polls that show that Musk's approval rating is much lower than Trump's. Washington Post has one 34% approve of Musk, 63% of his data access. CNN, 54% say it's bad Musk was given a big role. All the polls from CNN, Washington Post, Gallup disapprove of Musk. But, Musk is getting a little bit of, compensation for the tough treatment he's getting in the polls. Because you know what happened today, which is it's just an amazing story. It just came out earlier today. The Justice Department is dropping a discrimination case against SpaceX, Elon Musk's company. What an incredible coincidence. It's just people say that. I don't believe in coincidence. But you know what else they did today? Because Musk is very big into this. The SEC said they would drop a lawsuit against Coinbase, a big crypto company, making things better for people who are super into crypto. Isn't that fantastic? And even Musk's biggest detractor in Trump world, Steve Bannon, is imitating Musk because yesterday, speaking to CPAC, he ended his big speech by giving a Nazi salute, Sieg Heil. It's not just a tribute to the Nazis. It's a tribute to Musk. So say what you may, this is just a great day for Elon Musk, even though he's doing really badly in the polls. Isn't that great? That'll make you feel good, Minna.
I'm sure that's all unrelated, David. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
You're being conspiratorial.
Yeah, I know. It's just, forgive me, everybody. I'm just a little cynical because I've lived in Washington a long time. What is that noise in the background there, Riley? Are there like giant attack rats in your apartment?
It sounds like giant carpenter bees are trying to drill their way into my room.
Yeah, Riley lives in the worst apartment building in Washington. There are a lot of bad ones, but Riley lives in an apartment building that is supposed to be like comfortable in a comfortable neighborhood and everything else. But it's infested with giant killer rats. Is that not true, Riley?
I can neither confirm nor deny the presence of murderous rodents in my building.
Are you allowed to go to your gym?
Nope.
No. Because why? Because the rats will attack you.
I can't do my laundry because a rat might pop out of the laundry room and bite me to death.
And which is true. But in another unbelievable coincidence, Minna, are the number of rats in D.C. going up or down? Is Trump adding to the rat problem or making it worse?
Adding.
because it's spreading, right? There's more rats.
Yeah, DC is like the fastest growing rat population of all of the major cities in the United States. So
Who would have
we're
ever
very
thought it?
proud of our growing rat population.
Yeah, one of those rats wore sunglasses to the CPAC meeting yesterday, was stoned out of his mind on the stage, and the president of Argentina, who went to the CPAC meeting, that's a story in itself. You know what he did to this stoned out of his mind guy wearing sunglasses, and by that I mean Elon? He gave him a chainsaw, which Elon then started waving around, even though his ketamine addled brain probably didn't know where he was. And if he thought that, President Milei was a redwood, we would have been in big trouble. But it could have happened because Elon, on top of everything else, has got a little bit of a substance issue. Now that Kash Patel is the head of the FBI, I'm in trouble. They're going to come for me. I must say, I'm just reading the notes that Minna gave me.
It's all speculation in here.
Wasn't my idea. Go see that Minna Stein, Cash. Okay, Minna, what's up?
All right. U.S. envoy Keith Kellogg met with Ukrainian President Zelensky in Kyiv amid tensions over the war with Russia, with Trump pushing for a quick resolution and criticizing Zelensky for not holding elections during martial law. European leaders are increasing defense spending and considering a peacekeeping force, while Trump seeks a minerals deal with Ukraine, which Zelensky has rejected due to lack of security guarantees. Despite calls for elections from some opposition figures, Zelensky remains focused on winning the war and maintaining his leadership during the ongoing conflict. Yeah, this whole minerals deal thing that he wants to do with Ukraine really has me questioning if he really is the master of the art of the deal or not.
No, he thinks everything he thinks there's like a grift in everything that he does. Of course, it's not. One of the things that's distinguished the United States in going out and advancing its agenda for the past 100 years is that we typically do not go and seek that kind of recompense. It's actually not legal to go and seek that kind of thing. And of course, interestingly, most of the reserves of these rare earth metals that Trump wants in Ukraine are located in the parts of Ukraine that Trump wants to give to Russia. So it's a further complication. Don't expect the relationship between Trump and Zelensky to get any better. Trump calling Zelensky a dictator doesn't help it, but Trump switching sides and actually supporting the Russians is even worse. I saw somebody tweeting today, a member of Congress tweeting, saying, Marco Rubio is terrible as Secretary of State because the allies don't trust us anymore. It's not Marco Rubio's lack of skills as a Secretary of State, although it is his lack of character. It's the fact that we don't support our allies anymore. We support our former enemies. That's what makes allies not trust you. They can get through a spat. What they can't do is a geopolitical sea change that makes them more at risk and the world more at danger. See, you're happy heading into the weekend here, Riley. What else do you have?
Oh boy. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned Hamas for a, quote, cruel and malicious violation of the ceasefire agreement after a body released by the militant group falsely identified as Israeli hostage Shiri Bibas was found to be that of an unidentified Palestinian woman. The incident cast doubt on the fragile ceasefire, though the next phase, releasing 6 living hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners, appeared set to proceed. Hamas claimed the mix-up may have resulted from Israeli airstrikes and reiterated its commitment to the agreement, while Netanyahu vowed to bring all hostages home and hold Hamas accountable.
Yeah, Netanyahu hasn't been that interested in getting the hostages home for most of the past year and a quarter. This, is a very unfortunate incident. But, speaking of cruelty, what about the 50,000 dead Palestinians? Sorry, that's kind of heavy-handed commentary, but that's where we are. Minna?
The U.S. Senate passed a Republican bill early this morning advancing President Trump's policies on immigration, defense, and energy, but leaving his desired tax cuts to be addressed later. The $340 billion budget resolution boosts defense and border security spending while promoting energy deregulation. And it faces challenges in the House, where Republicans are divided over funding issues. Despite Democratic opposition and a series of unsuccessful amendments, Senate Republicans passed the bill with a 52-48 vote, using it as a backup in case the House fails to unite around a broader package, including $4.5 trillion in tax cuts.
Yeah, Democrats were divided on how to respond to this. Half the Democrats wanted to shake their heads disapprovingly, while the other half wanted to wag their fingers at the Republicans. That's what Democratic resolve in the face of the Republicans looks like these days. Senate is a little more sane than the House is on some of these issues, but the House is really where to watch on all of this, because, of course, a lot of the things that Trump wants have negative effects in districts that are represented by Republicans. And so those Republicans are going to resist those things, and they've got, I think, a margin of 2 right now in the House, so they can't really afford to lose anybody. And on this one thing, I do think the Democrats will remain united, and so it's going to be up to the Republicans to figure out how to get all this done. The bigger picture, of course, is that the Trump budget will increase the federal deficit by $5 trillion, because they don't really care about efficiency. They don't really care about cuts. They don't really care about balancing the budget. They're doing some cuts, mostly around loyalty, political issues, revenge issues. But they're offsetting all of them many times over by the tax cuts that they intend to try to put through here. None of their math adds up. Just look at any of their math. If they, cut 10% of the federal workforce, that amounts to something less than 1% of the federal budget. It's like 0.2% of the federal budget, which means it's not really going to have an effect except to reduce services to people. Break the law, because many of these people have jobs that are protected by civil service laws, and in some cases reduce revenue. For every dollar, for example, spent on an Internal Revenue Service person who goes out and collects, money from a high income person like a billionaire or a multimillionaire, they produce between $17 and $30 in revenue. So some of these people that are getting cut are actually revenue producers, and so none of this makes a heck of a lot of sense. We did a very good and illuminating episode of DSR's Words Matter yesterday with the great Norm Ornstein, who is the world's leading expert on the Congress. And if you want to know how Norm thinks all this is going to play out and what he thinks Dems ought to do, you should really listen to this week's DSR Words Matter podcasts, available wherever you get your fine podcasts. And frankly, if you're in this feed, getting this, you'll get that anyway. So listen to it. Riley.
The U.S. government announced it will end temporary protected status for approximately 500,000 Haitians by August 2025, revoking their work permits and making them eligible for deportation, despite worsening conditions in Haiti, including rampant gang violence and a 1,000% increase in sexual violence against children. The decision, part of President Trump's broader immigration overhaul, has drawn criticism from advocates and lawmakers who argue it disregards the dire humanitarian crisis in Haiti. The Trump administration has also moved to end TPS for Venezuelans, though this faces legal challenges.
All of this faces legal challenges. There are stories yesterday from the New York Times and others on what's happening to some of these people. A bunch of people have been shipped out of the U.S. and are being sent to Panama, where they're going to be put in, essentially an illegal camp on the edge of the jungle. while awaiting further deportation. But many of these people deserve to be in the U.S. and are really refugees. For example, among them are Afghans who, if they go home, could be put to death by the Taliban. There are Iranian Christians who, if they go home, will be put to death by the Iranian regime. There are people there who are Chinese and were escaping repression in China. And this is happening at this camp. It's happening at Guantanamo, where other refugees are being sent. But of course, they're making the lives of these people brutal because they're trying to send a message. It's not that they're trying to do justice. They're trying to say to people, don't come into this country. They're violating the law to do that. They're creating deep bad will around the world as a result of doing this. They're tearing communities apart as a result of doing this. But they're counting on the fact that most Americans just won't pay attention because, Americans don't want illegal immigrants who are committing crimes to be here. That's pretty natural. And that's what Trump is saying these people are. As it happens, they're not, most of them. And they're also not having a lot of success pushing up the numbers of deportations because it's hard to do. It's hard to find people who shouldn't be here and do so with fairly limited resources. And this apparently has Trump kind of pissed off because it was one of his top priorities. So what they can't do in numbers, they're making up for in cruelty.
And that's that.
And that's it for us on this Friday. We hope you folks have a good weekend and somehow can find ways to distract yourself from all this miserable nonsense that's going on here in Washington. Some of it, of course, is not nonsense and really deserves our attention as we anybody who cares about the way this country has operated for years or aspired to operate for years needs to figure out what they can do to resist at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. We'll try to cover those stories for you as well. I did a Substack overnight in which I talked about the fact that Norm said yesterday in the podcast that he felt uncomfortable getting on an airplane because of what's happening in air traffic in the United States and the many incidents we've just seen and the fact that we are cutting back on FAA personnel, but also the fact that I also felt uneasy yesterday sitting down, not on a plane, but at my desk, because all of a sudden we have people like Kash Patel, we have people like the U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., who are saying we're going to go after people who are critical of this administration. Is that a violation of the First Amendment? Yes. Is it not the way we're supposed to do things in this country? Yes. But things have changed. Things have changed in real ways. And even just doing a podcast like this, as I indicated earlier, could get Minna in big trouble because Riley and I will turn on her like on a dime because we'll protect our skins. Right, Riley?
Absolutely.
I knew not to trust you guys.
Yeah. No, we're all in this together. And when we end up in a camp in the Panamanian jungle, we'll have some great stories to tell, won't we? Yeah, you guys, you're looking a little nervous, and you should, because this is a dangerous time. But as long as we can be here for you, we will be here for you at the DSR Daily with our other podcasts each and every day of the week. And if you've missed one this week, can I go and suggest that you listen to either the Siliconsciousness we did with Nobel Prize winner Daron Acemoglu on AI and the economics of AI, which was a brilliant discussion. He's a brilliant guy. Or the Deep State Radio podcast we did with Rosa Brooks, Corey Shockey, and Ed Luce, which is a really in-depth look at what's happened to our foreign policy, deeply disturbing. Or the podcast we did with Norm yesterday. All of these are well worth your time and a great way to spend your weekend. Have a good weekend. Thank you, Minna. Thank you, Raleigh. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye-bye.